Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Calyx and Crew podcast. Before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to Kokonaut Sensors. Kokonaut Sensors has one of the best sensors on the market right now. At a retail value of only, $69, you can pick up a sensor that checks your humidity, your temperature, your VPD, and I heard from Anton coming here soon. He is also going to include not only the charts for the live VPD, but CO2 as well, which is very, very nice. Today's episode, I'm highly stoked for. I've been anticipating this for a very long time, very long overdue. He just did a podcast with the James Loud Show, Romulan Jake of Romulan Genetics. How you doing?
Good. How's everybody doing?
Good, man. Very good. It's an awesome day. We finally got some heat over here today. Got a little bit warmed up. I rolled up some sour diesel for this, and I just wanted to talk to you, you know? We've been talking about doing something like this for a very long time, and today is the right day. Today is the day.
Here we are.
So before we get started, not all of my listeners are going to know who Romulan Genetics is, and the story behind Romulan or anything like that. Why don't you introduce yourself really quick, tell everybody who you are, what you do, what your company's about, and what your goal is.
I'll try to remember all of this. So, my name's Jake. I'm the owner of Romulan Genetics. You can find us on romulangenetics.com. I've got an Instagram under the same name. I've been around in breeding for going on 2 or 3 years now. I forget. In 2015, my father passed away, and as part of him passing away, the Romulan clone that was kept in our family, which wasn't known as Romulan by our family, but was handed over to me, and it was kind of, the torch was passed, and I was told to keep it alive and do well with it. And I started by giving clones and cuts away for a long time. And then eventually people just kept pressuring me, hey, you got to make seeds, you got to do some stuff. And so I started doing it just as a hobby, and I got such great positive reaction. It turned into far more than that. It's kind of become a life calling, passion more than a hobby now. I'm really stoned right now, so I'm going to try to remember. I remember you said my goals, and then there was something in between that maybe I missed there. But as far as future goals, I've got a small little roadmap plan that I've been sticking to for the past few years of things that right when I kind of set my mind that I'm going to do this and do Romulan Genetics, I came up with a bunch of stuff that I knew I wanted to breed it with, that I knew I wanted to try and see what it would come out like. And then I had some other things that were personal projects that I wanted to do. And so I've been sticking to that roadmap, and I've got, about another 2 or 3 years left of that. And I figure once I get done doing that, it has a lot to do with making as many reg seed lines as I can, along with a few feminized versions in between to kind of keep people happy that like to grow those. But my plan is with the reg seed stuff is to get a decent stable for me to work from, so that over the next 10 years and a couple of years from now, I can start stabilizing those lines, the ones that I like the most, do some things where I, pheno hunt and find some really nice, unique ones and make feminized versions of those for people. But try to eventually get to where I've got about maybe a dozen IVL versions or close to that. And that's my long-term goal. But that's stuff that we're talking at least 10 years beyond that for me to just get a few things available at that point.
That's awesome, though, man. You got plans already to take what your father bestowed upon you and put your own signature on it. I love that. I love it. I want to take a step back really quick, because you just said something that I hadn't heard from you before. And that's that your family didn't know it as Romulan.
Right.
What did you know as?
So it was just basically, because back in the day, there weren't really, when I was growing up, and this was in the 70s and the 80s, you didn't really have as many names for bud. It was really about the location where it was from. There was Maui Wowie and a few exceptions, but
right.
For the most part, you were talking about, Acapulco Gold or Colombian Red, and it was called red because the hairs were red, or gold because the hairs were gold, and where it came from. And this was called Pinebud, and there was a mountain nearby where I grew up called Pine Mountain, so some people would call it Pine Mountain Bud. People that were close to my father would call it G-Dubs Bugs. Those were his initials. But it was mainly because it smelled like pine and nothing else did. And so people just referred to it as the Pine Bud.
That's awesome, man, because that's exactly how I came to know it before the name Romulan came by, was Port Alberni Pinebud. That's what we always
Right.
did.
And when I first got into this, I didn't know about that. That was stuff that I had to learn early on getting into this and talking to people. And they said, there's a much deeper history than what you can kind of just look into on the internet. And then I started talking to my pop's friend that hadn't passed yet and getting more information from him. And that was where I learned a lot more about all of this. Because initially it was just that, wow, I know this plant's great. It's fantastic. I gave it to some friends. And then the word coming back was, it's a lot more than that. And people don't really have this anymore. So you have to try to get it to as many people as you can.
Did that
so it
feel
went
like
from
a
just
huge burden?
It did. It went from this really kind of small thing, like, no big deal. Like, I'm sure I can keep it alive, and I've got my dad's friend that at the time he was still alive, and I can talk to him and he can tell me what to do if I've got any questions. And it was real, carefree, and I remember my first harvest and I smoked it and I just was floored at how good it was. And okay, I'm going to keep doing this. This is great. This is kind of what I've wanted to do my whole life, is have my own grow that no one fucked with. And so I can definitely do this. And then as soon as I started giving some of the flower to friends, then people started asking me for the cut and I started giving that to them. And then, a month down the road, they were coming back to me saying, you can't just keep this to yourself. You have to get this out. So
yeah,
the burden really kind of got heavy at that point, because I knew that wasn't something I was prepared or wanted to do or capable of at all. And I started just giving it away to people. And I was on forums, and eventually people said, oh, go on Instagram. And I got on Instagram and was trying to find, people that wanted it, that had the biggest grows that I could find on there, big outdoor grows and stuff, and people that were in California as local to me as I could find. And I eventually got to give it to Dark Heart Nursery, and I gifted it to them. And
I remember that.
And I kind of had this fantasy that, it's only going to take them a couple months and clones are going to be everywhere. And it was years later before they even did their initial release. During that time, I had people asking, can I get seeds from you? And I said, I have some old ones, but I don't really want to give them away. This is all I have from my dad. And so it doesn't really go well with me.
How old was you when he passed that cut to you?
This was in 2015. So yeah, I'm damn near 50 now.
Okay.
So it wasn't that long ago when he actually passed it to me, but I grew up around it, and I can literally remember in my diapers being around it. And it was around before I was born. So
right. Well, you said it was a long-term project between a lot of guys.
Yeah.
So did you have any growing experience prior to your dad giving you this cut?
I had not all on my own. I had grown up around growing and cultivating, and I'd helped a lot of friends do things, various different grows, outdoor closets, all that kind of stuff, many, many times. But it was never my grow. It was never from beginning to end. No one else was doing it. It was always just kind of, I'm coming over to a friend's house and we're doing this together at best, or it was, I'm giving him advice, So it wasn't really ever my grow. And there were several where I was involved enough where it was, this is our pot and everything. Me and my friend were saying how we grew this, but it was never my own, and it never felt like I knew what I was doing. So,
whoa, that's interesting.
I had a lot
of, it was such a burden then.
Yeah, exactly. I had a decent amount of knowledge, and I had a lot of access to everything I needed to know. But at the time, I knew enough to get started, but that was about it.
Right. So now you're kind of down the line for a while. You did an awesome job at preserving those genetics, I guess say. And now you're hybridizing all these things to find new things to hunt through, to kind of take that Romulan staple and put your own signature moves on it. And I love that. I got to say, that fritter bomb that you made recently, if you would have caught me any other time, I would have just called bullshit. Like with a lot of cookie stuff, I usually call bullshit. But we do our hype strain reviews. And on our hype strain reviews, we did smoke that apple fritter. And that was one of maybe 3 of the hype strains that I've ever smoked that I was like, that one's actually really decent.
Yeah. And that's Lumpy's who made that. And he's pretty local to me here too. So that one was special to me that Katsu chose that, because it's a guy that's, I don't know him personally, but he's not far from me. And I think he created that in 2010 or 2012. It's been around here for a long time, and it's just now starting to become this big hype thing. So it's been really cool to watch that process. So that one was really special to me, and I was fingers crossed that was going to turn out good, and it blew my mind how good it actually turned out. If you've smoked apple fritter, you know it's pretty potent stuff.
Oh yeah.
And the two of them together it's real good. And the taste is amazing. I think a lot of people that are kind of turf chasers and into flavors are going to love it just because of that. But because it's so potent and so strong. And
how did it change
right in
the
the
flavor
face.
profile?
It's not exactly the same as it smells. You know, a lot of things don't. But it's got a real good sweetness to it. And it's kind of the best way I can describe the smoke, because for me, I have a harder time pinpointing down flavors than I do smell. It's kind of like smoking a sweet candy that's got some kind of cushy, piney ganja type, flavor in the background to it. But it's almost like smoking candy. I'm trying not to dip back into it and smoke some other stuff, because when I get stuff that's that tasty, I'll smoke an ounce every few days, and I can't smoke like that. That's too much weed.
Preserve it a little bit.
Yeah, I'll just be sitting on my couch like a zombie 24/7.
So let me ask you, when you were looking at putting your own signature on this and finding things that you were going to breed with the Romulan, what were the boxes that you had? Like, what were you looking for?
So that one's real easy. I want Romulan that tastes different. I want to be able to have some options to smoke different tastes. I love Romulan. I smoke it all the time. I smoke it every day. I've been smoking it for years straight, and I never tire of it. But it's nice to smoke stuff that tastes a little different every now and then. Right. But most of the stuff that I go out and get, or I get from friends, or I grow myself, that is a totally different profile, I don't really like smoking it. I like the taste of it, but 10 minutes after I smoke it, I'll go and smoke Romulan, because that's the high. That's the high that I want to feel. I don't want to feel whatever it was that I just smoked.
Right.
So that's the first category of that, is make a bunch of things, try to at least, that affect me just like Romulan does, but have a different taste to it, different smell. And then after that, I want to have things that are far more sativa leaning or far more indica leaning. I want to have stuff that's, better for if I just want to zonk the hell out or watch a movie or be really couch locked, or stuff where I want to be almost like I'm on amphetamines or something, cleaning my house, mowing my lawn and doing everything.
Right.
Yeah. I want to have that broad spectrum, because I like everything that there is within the cannabis world for smoking. So first it's flavors and trying to stick with stuff that hits me just like Romulan. And then second, it's stuff it's close to the Romulan effect that I can get, but leans far more in one direction or the other.
This is why you and I have always got along, is because you're very fucking real with what you say. You're not trying to promote yourself out of nowhere. You're just telling it how it is. And the fact that you're working with Romulan in this way, because it's something that you love to smoke, and you want to take that to different lengths that are still going to work good for you specifically, that means that you're breeding for what you like, and you're actually putting that intent in it. And that's going to come forward in your work.
I hope so.
I can't remember all of them. I go through so many seeds all the fucking time. I got so many friends that do this. I forgot everything that you had crossed the Romulan with. What all did you pick other than the apple fritter?
So for the Katsu collab, that's he made those selections. That was all his choices. I think he may have tried to choose things that he knew I would be interested in, like too, because he did make a lot of selections that were right up my alley. And in fact, two or three of the things that he crossed with, he didn't know what I was doing at the time, and we made the exact same crosses. We both made a roadkill skunk and Romulan cross. We both made a grape ape and Romulan cross. And there was one other thing that we both did the exact same thing. And on one or two of them, I think the grape ape, we were using the same cuts. So we were literally making the same cross. The roadkill skunk, I hunted mine from seed that I got from Copycat, which was, I know some people have issues with that, and I don't really give a shit. I had some people I highly respect said, it doesn't matter what you hear about him. If you're going to grow something of his and you like the old school shit, get his roadkill skunk. And it was a guy that's been growing for 30 or 40 years that told me that. And then someone else repeated it. It didn't have quite as much cred in my world, but it was, I heard it from several people, and I went, okay, yeah, I'm going to get it. And they were right. It was legit, and it was fantastic. And I found one that was, the one that I chose was not quite the skunkiest that wasn't the best selection in that area, but it had a really nice structure, had a really massive yield to it compared to the other ones. And it didn't have as much of a branching issue or anything. And it didn't need any support. And so that was my selection because it was a real nice breeder. I wasn't going after it just for the skunk profile.
That's awesome. I really appreciate strong branching.
Yeah, I do too. I try not to spend too much time in the grow room.
Of a lot of breeders' lists, they want a good structure, but like if all the progeny, you know, they're either weak and limpy or strong, they don't really mind too much.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it a lot less work when you've got something that yields really nice, that's not flopping all over its fucking self and needs to be managed on a daily basis.
Yeah, I can't help because of my personality with being kind of OCD with my growth when I'm doing them. And so I'm in there almost when I'm breeding, I'm in there every day, checking every single plant, trying to literally with my eyeballs and hands, look at every node, every portion of it, going over the whole plant to make sure nothing's going wrong, nothing's, and if you trellis things and have all kinds of supporting, that gets to be a huge pain in the ass to even get in and prune and trim and things like that. And so I can't stand the fact that my Romulan cut is a pain in the ass in that sense. You have to support it. You have to trellis it in almost every type of grow. And it's a lot of work in that sense. And so I try to, when I'm breeding with it, I already know that that's an issue. So I try to choose things that are going to not continue that as much as possible.
Awesome. Exactly. That's exactly what you want to do is, with every outcrossing that you do, you want to take what you already had and make it better. The point isn't to go backwards. So the fact that you're breeding for those weaknesses within it, that really shows your passion. I appreciate that.
Thank you, brother. So it's a learning process. And I kind of thought getting into all this breeding stuff, I was like, there'll be some failures. I'm sure I've heard that, but I figure probably most of the stuff, because if I choose right, most stuff I make will be great. It's been like maybe a third, 30%, 25% of what I've made has been, okay, no, this actually is stuff that I can sell to people.
We're going to take a short break and we will be right back with Romulan Jake of Romulan Genetics. Stay tuned. Hey guys, while we're on short break, I wanted to give a quick shout out to one of my favorite sponsors, one of the best affiliates that we have on the show, Kokonaut Sensors. You guys can find them over on IG, over at Kokonaut Inc., or you can find their website at www.kokonaut.com. That's KOKONAUT.com. I believe their sensors retail at $69 each, and it's such a cool little device, guys. I cannot praise them enough. I use them in all of my rooms, especially at that price. You can't really beat it. They are battery operated. The batteries have never ran out on me, and I've been using them for over a year now. I believe I heard that the batteries can last in them for up to 2.5 years, but that comes with the price point. What Kokonaut does, it's a pretty amazing little device. You can get an app that works with it on Google Play. You can get it on the Apple Store. But what it does is it connects your climate data to your hands. So you can tell what's going on in your environment if you need to go away for a while, if you need to take a vacation, whatever, you know what's going on inside your grow room, and it'll help you keep track of keeping everything where it needs to be within VPD values. It's pretty amazing. It tracks it. You can bump it. You can find it. You can refresh it at any point and see where your humidity levels are at, where your temperature is at, and where your VPD is at. It's a pretty damn handy little tool. You can add multiple sensors on the same app. So you can check your veg room, you can check your clones, your seedlings, your mothers, your flower room, whatever you need to do. Awesome, awesome guys. Awesome retail value. I cannot say enough good things about them. I heard they are also going to be incorporating CO2 as well soon, so I'm very much looking forward to that. I believe that is going to be a bit higher price, but not much at all. But with the CO2, I believe he said it was going to be running a higher power, so it is actually going to have to use a wall plug on that one. Either way, we love them. We support them. One of the best sensors for one of the best price points. If you guys aren't looking to go out there and spend $300 on a sensor, but you do want to keep control of your climate in different grow rooms, I would highly suggest Kokonaut Sensors. Go give them a follow over there. That's kokonaut.com. One more time, www.kokonaut.com. coconut.com, or you can find them on IG at Coconut Inc. Huge shout out, and let's get it back to our episode with Romulan Genetics. All right, we're back with Romulan Genetics. Before we left, we were talking about some of the people that you were collabing with, like Katsu. You did the release with Katsu. Who else were you thinking about collabing with?
I've talked to quite a few people, and for a while since I started this, I've had a short, specific list of people that I wanted to work with. Katsu was on that list before him and I even talked. So I was really excited to work with him, and that's turned out to be pretty amazing because, I see what most breeders do with a collab, and they make maybe one or two strains, and that's their collaboration, and then they move on with their lives to other things. And that's what Katsu and I were going to do, and it ended up turning into really big projects and ongoing and years worth of releases. And we're talking about doing more things, and so it's almost becoming more of a long-term partnership than a collaboration. And he knows a lot, so I'm learning a lot from it too, and getting to see crosses with stuff that I've wanted to see for years. And he just went and did it and got it done, and I get to see it. So it's really fucking cool. But I did that with him, and I'm talking with 13 Hills and UFO Genetics. I think those might be the next ones. I don't know exactly if both of them are going to happen or what's going to happen with them, because we didn't get too deep into specifics with it. And it's been a little while since I talked to UFO Genetics. But I recently got my cut into Paul's hand. He's the guy who runs Nucleus Seed Bank. And he's really good friends with the guy from 13 Hills and the guy from UFO Genetics. So he's going to try to then get my cut into their hands. So those should be the next two people that I'll be doing one with, hopefully, if things go well. I've talked extensively to Gates Green Group, but it's been about a year since I've talked to them, and we never really got into specifics.
I haven't heard that name for a while.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. They've just kind of been quiet for a bit. Hopefully that means they're hard at work.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it does. But I've talked to them several times. I talked to Ethos a little bit, and both of those I was pretty excited about. So, I hope to maybe one day get talking to them again about things. And I think that's it as far as like what will actually happen. There have been several other contacts from other people that things probably won't happen because you can only do so many things at once,
Yeah. You can't fight too many wars on different fronts,
Well, so some people can, but I'm not the kind of person that I'll never be dropping 2 or 3 new strains every couple of weeks. I'll never do that, on a consistent basis for years. Some people drop things like that, and that's not how I work. So
yeah, I like smaller batches just so I can really pay attention to those few, You try to take on too many projects and your mind starts going all over the place and it becomes a little bit fuzzy.
Yeah, I usually try to stick to 1 or 2. That's how I've done most things in the past. I just recently bumped it up and did like 5 different crosses at once and red seed stuff. And it was a little bit too much for me. I didn't like it. So I probably won't do that many again. So it just gets too hectic having to pay as close attention as I do to all the different plants. And when they're all different, that's harder to do. You kind of have to go row to row type thing. And a lot of times my plants will get mixed up. So I'll be trying to look at the tag, stick with the same cultivar till I get through them and then move to another one. But then that gets too hard to do. And it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. No, I hear that, man. For sure. So out of all these collabs that you did with Katsu, what would you say were the top 3 that you personally, you were like, I really appreciate this one?
So we did, the first one was a year ago, and it was a feminized seed line. And he did basically about the same thing that we did with this current release coming up with the regular seed line. He did a dozen different cultivars. He reversed my Romulan and let that dust all these things that he'd been growing for a while and working with. And several of those, we hardly got any seeds from it. We didn't get very much at all. And there was only enough from 2 of them to release in it. So we released Old School Dank, which is kind of like white Romulan. It's the white Romulan. And then we released
thanks for the explanation.
Yeah. And then we released Space Fuel, which is East Coast Sour Diesel and Romulan. And both of those were top notch, just fantastic. but we didn't have that many packs. We didn't have that many seeds. It was pretty limited release. I still have several packs of myself that I kept in my vault. That stuff was really, really good. But there were 10 other cultivars that no one really got to see or smoke. And I think only a few testers got some stuff from Katsu. And most of them were fantastic. There was a Black Line Bubba Kush in Romulan that was about the most potent stuff I've ever smoked. I mean, it would felt like I got hit in the head with a frying pan, and then I would just basically pass out 10 minutes after I smoked it.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
No, it's not a good thing, really. I guess
say, it doesn't sound like it's up your alley.
For special occasions, yeah. I guess if you get home from a hard day's work or something, then that's exactly what you're looking for.
Oh yeah. Sometimes.
But it was just remarkable in how potent it was, and its taste was really good too. But there were several of those things on the regular seed thing that I just test ran, and I'm smoking all the stuff of it now. And there's two that haven't quite finished up their long-winded 12+ weekers. So I'm waiting for those before I can talk about those. But the Fritter Bomb is probably, for what's going on in the industry right now, is probably the best one of those. That would be what I would pick as number one if I'm trying to appease everyone with my selection. It's not my own personal number one, but it's the easiest to grow, just about the highest yielder in that room. And I ran 12 different cultivars. It was really, really high yields. Really pretty plant, really frost covered, really potent, really tasty. Just kind of crossed all the different boxes off that people look for these days. It looked really exotic and shit like that. That one was probably the number one. Right now, number two for me is Vapor Trails, which is the Roadkill Skunk and Romulan, because it's got that old school flavor to it, and it's extremely potent on the indica side. And I don't smoke a lot of harder indica shit. I just try to, when I have stuff like that, I only smoke it at night. And so it just doesn't feel like I'm smoking that much of it, because all day long I'm smoking Romulan from about an hour after I wake up until I go to bed. And sometimes I'll smoke a bowl every 10 minutes.
That's never
I smoke a lot. Yeah. I smoke a hell of a lot. And sometimes I feel like I have to, because I have so much weed on me that I have to keep smoking that much, because otherwise, what the hell am I going to do with it? It's eventually going to go bad.
Well, yeah, I was going to say something there, but I can't. Put a marker there.
Mm-hmm. Put a pin in that one. So, Vapor Trail's number two, and probably the Stonks, which is UW and Romulan. That'd be my number three.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And that's because and that's because my choices are kind of going to be a little different. Like the Head Dent is awesome. That's Headband and Romulan. All of them are really good. That's the thing. They're all so good that it's kind of hard to really choose. And so most of them, it's like, well, this is a lot like that parent or this parent. And so it doesn't impress me as much as the ones that are very unique in their own right. The ones that came out much more like a true F1 are the ones that I've got my eye on. It's like, wow, those are special. Those are really cool. Because when you look at both parents, they're coming out as pretty evenly as something in between, a mesh of the two, and quite unique. And the Stonks is really, really special.
You're saying that F1, the blend between both parents, is very dominant in that.
Yes,
it
exactly.
Takes over the leaners.
Yeah. Whereas most of the other stuff, it was that things were in one direction or the other. There really wasn't as many phenos that showed up that were in between. It was a really nice mixture of the two parents. Most of them were that you can tell that leans more towards Romulan, or you can tell that leans more towards Atmosphere. Just as an example, that's not a good example. That's what I mean. So and the Stonks one was really interesting, because there was this really off smaller plant that finished really fast, and I got to smoke it early on, and it tasted exactly like grape blunt wraps.
Nice.
Like really strongly. So when you smoked a bowl of it in a glass piece, it did this really strange thing with your head where you're like, am I smoking blunt wraps? Like, I don't understand what's going on here. And people in the room too. Like the first bowl I smoked, I blew out, and someone walked in the room and they're like, are you smoking a blunt in here? And I said, no, it's just sweet.
Everybody has a different perception of what something tastes or smells like,
Mm-hmm.
And some of those.
And it is interesting. It is interesting to see, because I do get some people that have grown my Romulan cut, and specifically my cut, they've got it from Dark Heart Nursery. And every now and then I get someone that they're like, oh, it tastes, creamy vanilla. It's something totally different than what everyone else tastes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, really? And can I see a picture of the grow? And they show me a picture, and it looks fantastic. They did a great job. And I'm like, they must just have kind of like a different, profile on it, with the way that their body takes it in.
Oh, I remember when I did my first, and it was horrible. I didn't have a handout right off the bat. Nobody gave me any cuts. Everything I had to work from seed. But the very first cross I did, I just was not happy with it. By the time we got to F3, it just wasn't stable in it. But
I think I saw you talking about that.
But we had all the testers growing them out, and it was very heavy on the skunk side of its family.
Mm-hmm.
And all the testers, by the time we came to harvest, they were saying, oh, it's really, really earthy, skunky, or there was some like sweet skunky phenotypes, but everything was like overall very skunky. It had a little bit of Hawaiian in it, so you'd get that too. But we had one tester that said, it tastes like mint. I was like, is it dry?
Just totally off the wall. It throws you off too. You're like, oh shit, really?
I mean, you went pretty far off the spectrum there.
Yeah. One guy had me hunting for like a pheno that I wasn't going to find in mine for a while. It was really fun.
Oh no.
And then we got talking about something else, and he goes, yeah, this tasted like this to me. And I'm like, what? Wait a minute. That's everyone smoking. It wasn't OG, but it was something like that where everyone universally says this is what it tastes like,
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, no, it's totally different for me. But I'm like that with so many strains and so many things. And I was like, oh,
yeah,
okay. Well, I'm gonna
something
stop
I don't know
then.
about here.
Yeah,
that sucks, man. So how long were you hunting for that one?
it had been like I was probably 3 grows, so like 9 months.
No.
I made a cross. One of the first early things I did, and I never released it, was the hog with Romulan, and it was insane.
I remember.
It was really, really good, but it had a very high intersex rate. It was like 30%, somewhere around there.
Oh.
And so I couldn't release it. So I was trying to hunt through it and find better things. But I had people that did test grows, and they were like, no herms, fucking crazy yields, like the biggest I've ever seen, and super potent. Some of the best stuff I've ever had. And one guy, because I wanted to call it alien bacon. Once I realized I was going to cross them, I just kind of had that name stuck in my brain. And one guy said, no shit, I have a pheno that tastes like bacon. And I was like, I got to find that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what happened. I was looking for this bacon pheno, and there was no bacon phenos to be found. There wasn't anything close to it. I kept looking though, thinking,
yeah, I'd be looking for that too. That's awesome. Bacon?
Right?
Who doesn't like
I love bacon.
Everybody loves bacon. I mean, not everybody, I guess, but yeah.
They should. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't love bacon.
I've got to be the PC one. I got to put another marker now.
There's probably countries where they don't even know bacon, and that's
I know. God damn it. More markers.
We should have a bacon across the world program will start, and it'll give out bacon to underprivileged bacon countries.
Oh no. Yeah, I got to cut that one out. I'm enjoying this, man. Thanks for joining me and doing this.
You said it was going to be a session, smoke, and be relaxed, and that's exactly what I'm being.
So is there anything else that you wanted to talk about on the show, man? I don't want to force your hand or anything.
I mean, I don't know. Quantum physics. I don't know. What do you want to talk
about? Well, now I kind of want to talk about quantum physics. You got some shit or what?
I mean, yeah, I can go pretty deep in a lot of different areas. Yeah.
Okay.
I've done a lot of reading and stuff throughout my life, and my
quantum
beliefs are very
motherfucker.
Let me start with what I believe in. Okay, so I believe that I'm a Christian, and I believe that most of what's written in the Bible, what's written in the Bible is true. Most of it is interpreted truly. Is the best way to explain it. But
you don't want me to have a podcast today.
but no. Listen, this is important, and you can air any of this. I don't care. I studied Orthodox Christianity, and what I was taught by the people who was teaching me in Orthodox Christianity, which is an older form of Christianity,
right,
is that there is room within Christianity and believing in God and all of that for Bigfoots, ghosts, aliens, wormholes, portals, time travel, anything. anything, because God created everything, and as humans, we shouldn't question what He's created.
Amen.
We should examine it and do our best to interpret it and all these things, but we should not ignore it. We should not deny it, and we should not question it, because if He created it, it's not our job to question what He's made. And that was one of the first meetings I had. And this was kind of something I was being forced into. I was going into a marriage, and they said, you have to be Orthodox Christian. So I was going into it a little hesitantly, and I asked him these questions, and I said, what about these things? Because I've read the Bible. I do believe a lot of it, but there are some issues I have. And I explained my issues, and he said, well, most people look at that the wrong way, because they don't realize with God, there is no time. So a lot of what you're reading that's being explained as time isn't time how we see it. It's how He sees it.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe a day
Can you build
is a million years.
That fast?
Maybe it's a billion years. Maybe a day is right. So he's like, a lot of people don't realize that in reading it, and they misinterpret things, and they take it the wrong way, and they take it too literally.
Mm-hmm.
So I have spent my whole life studying all these different things, and I firmly believe I've seen UFOs. I've had very dramatic Bigfoot encounters.
You had a Bigfoot encounter?
Yes, I had one throw
Where
a
was
rock
this?
back at me on my property. It threw a rock back at me. I'm not joking.
What?
I'm dead serious. And where it was,
I'm in Bigfoot country. I haven't seen Bigfoot.
It's not where people would have been. There's no other explanation that I can plausibly come up with, because it wasn't people I was dealing with that were in the forest next to my property. My dog was going nuts. My dog that doesn't bark at people ever, never loses his mind, and he was going ape shit.
Oh, no.
And there was something moving in the bushes about 5 feet from my fence. And it's a fence that's just wrought iron. You can see through it. And I couldn't see what the hell was there. And then something else moved 15 feet away to the right. Then something else moved way over here. And I knew it could, now I'm dealing with multiple things, because that one thing didn't move. It's still there making noise. And so I started talking and thinking it was people. And I got no response, nothing. And I'm armed. And so I pick up a rock and I throw it high arc up in the air to try to have it land behind whatever is out there, to hopefully get them to at least make a movement so I can better know whatever's out there, where it is. And as soon as the rock landed, a rock hit right next to me. There's a huge pine tree that's like, you can't even put your arms around it, big around. A big rock hit the tree right next to my head, about 16 inches, 18 inches from my head, and bounced off the tree right behind me, almost hit me.
So it had to be Bigfoot.
That's the only thing I come up with, because I turned on the light after that. At that point, I really kind of got scared shitless.
Yeah.
And I started shining flashlights and spotlights, and there was nothing there. And it's hard for me to explain, but it's not a place where people would be. They could possibly be, but it's not a place where people would be. And they certainly wouldn't be there at 2:00 in the morning, a group of them, without flashlights, without anything, and able to move from the area without making as much noise as there's all kinds of sticks and branches, and whatever was there moved away silently. It just wasn't there anymore. I heard very minimal movement that I knew it was moving, and then it just wasn't there. I don't know how to explain it. It was either a ghost that threw a rock at me, and many of them that were just fucking with me, and my dog could see them, and it made the whole property smell weird, or it was Bigfoot.
No, I just love how dead on serious you are right there. Or it was Bigfoot.
Yep. I had other people here that was witness to it with me, and
don't let me make fun of you. I mean, everybody has fucking encounters of some kind, or I'm just the worst fucking skeptic, and it's probably because you and I both have that OCD problem. But I'm the worst skeptic ever, and I try to explain everything. And
I get that, because I've been down that road
the opposite way. And I've seen pans fly across rooms before, just all kinds. It's a long story. I'm going to have to tell you about that sometime. I actually went to college at what had been recreated from a old mental hospital, and they turned into a college. And there was just some crazy shit that happened there. But even Miss C, she loves ghosts. And she's like, and you don't believe in ghosts? And I'm like, a ghost would literally have to walk up to me and say, what up? And I'd be like, all right, you're real.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I get
there
that.
is shit like that. And it's just like, there's no explaining that, like seeing a knife go off a 3-foot counter through my buddy's rubber boot. Like,
oh, Jesus.
Yeah, you don't have enough velocity to do that.
No. Yeah. And once you've seen something like that, you're like, okay, how do I explain that?
Yeah. So anyway, we talk about cannabis sometimes, right?
Yeah. Let's just get back on subject here. This is what happens when the weed you're smoking is too good.
That's good, though.
Way off track.
At least it means we're smoking good stuff. Because you and I are both in this. I love it. This is by far one of my favorite podcasts I've ever done.
I feel like we're sitting on opposite couches in the same room. So.
Yeah, no, and that's how it should be. That's how it should be. That's how I've always done it. Even back on when we did like all the IG live shows, that's all it was. We were just sitting there smoking, talking about weed with everybody. And it should always be like that. That's what I love. That's my passion.
It works that way.
Yeah, that's how it flows,
It reminds me of, my younger days, just going over to friends' houses, friends coming over to your house just to smoke, you'd sit there for hours, music playing low in the background, just chatting, laughing.
That's what I'm shooting for.
Talking about whatever.
So I did want to ask you one question that we always ask all of our guests.
Mm-hmm.
And this one I'm super interested in because there's a few options now from what you've said that you have to pick through. But we always say if there's one, I don't like to say strain anymore. I hate saying strain. I've been saying type.
Cultivar.
Type variety. Yeah. Cultivar. Well, I think cultivar more as like not a type. I find a type is more like your Fritterbomb crossed with Romulan. And then like your cut would be the cultivar, right?
Yeah.
Like that's how I found it. So
that's spot on.
Okay. I just question myself all the fucking time, so I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. If we're gonna get technical about it, that's spot on.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I like to ask people, out of everything that you have, everything that you work with, if there was one type to represent your company and what your goals are, what would you say it was? One to represent Romulan genetics.
Oh, Jesus.
The tough questions.
I mean, I could obviously just easily say, well, Romulan, because he's my favorite and I smoke it all the time.
Right. But you're putting your own signature on it too. That's why I mentioned.
I'm torn between two.
Okay.
One is Communion that I made, and I made a rig seed and a feminized version of it. I don't think I ever released the rig seed version because I want to work that further before I do any releases of that. But that one was really, really good. And I put a lot of work into it. I started by crossing 2 other things first and working those, and then crossed that with Romulan. It took some time to do that. Yeah, it was a Grape Stomper OG and Durban Poison, if I'm remembering right. If people are reading my website or something right now going, no, it wasn't, then I'm sorry, I have a bad memory. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Because I've liked both of those, and I was excited just to cross those 2 together for some structural things. I wanted to see if I could bring over the trichome production and the bud siphon stuff from the Grape Stomper into the Durban Poison, because that's just a gorgeous plant to me. And I love growing.
What about that flavor?
Love the flavor too. It's great. I mean, anything that's older is just right up my alley. Basically, if you go through the history of cannabis, once you get to headband, that's kind of where I started checking out on these things. Taste great to me. Everything after that just wasn't as good as the older shit.
Mm-hmm.
So
you said there was 2, right?
between the Communion, which was that, and that came out with a really good grape candy or a wine kind of flavor, and it was just delicious, really, really potent, but a nice you could chill on it and relax the indica high, but it wasn't going to put you to sleep. So I spent a lot of times listening to albums and stuff, smoking that, and I tore through. I think I had a half pound of it, and I smoked it in a couple weeks or something. It was just a stupid short amount of time that I smoked all this weed to myself. That one was really great. But the first thing that I made, it started as a polyhybrid project. It ended up being a double polyhybrid. I called it Ring of Fire. I did a
remember
Feminized release, and I did a F1 release. And that one probably best stands for who I am and what I do.
That's awesome. Are you making
that
more?
I'm going to work that further and release like an F4, F5 if I get antsy. If I don't get antsy and I can be patient, it'll be an IBL by the time I release it again.
Good.
But that who knows how long that could take me, because there can be setbacks and all that shit. So that one I think best represents me because of the fact that that's the first real thing that I made. That's what I set out to make. And I ended up with a double poly hybrid, which if you know about breeding, it's far more complicated. Far more complicated the more things you do when you're doing that. And it was all over the place. I had so many clones, I didn't know what the hell to do with them. At one point, I was jam packed. And that was how I wanted to start learning to do this, was to try to get the most difficult stuff out of the way first, so that everything else wouldn't be a challenge. In a sense, it would be enjoyable. And I'm really proud of that creation. It was something I spent a lot of time on, and it was like a secret. I didn't tell anyone for a long, long time what I was doing. And then when I finally released it, I kind of did it all without much notice when I first dropped it. And I did like a real limited release at first and gave it out to a bunch of people as testers. That one I think best represents what I do and what I want to do. Because if you've grown it and smoked it, the feedback I've got from everyone is they absolutely love it. There's a lot of people that have keepers they found, and that's what they continue to grow. It was a really, really good smoke. It was a really, really, really good smoke. And I'm like sitting here going, God, I got to grow some of that against you. But I think that's probably the one that the best represents me. Communion, I would say, also is there because a lot of the stuff that I will be doing, not so much as a personal project for me, is going to be like that. The stuff that I try to appease people with is going to be more like communion. The stuff that's what I want is going to be more like Ring of Fire. It's going to be stuff that may be unruly to trim. It may be a pain in the ass to grow, but I'm not going to care about that because my ultimate, I can grow something. It's fine. I care about how it smokes. Nothing else matters. I don't care what color the leaves turn. That's stupid. They trim off anyway, so I only care about what it smokes like. And Ring of Fire it was finicky. She was a pain in the ass to grow. She was a super pain in the ass to trim because there were leaves and frost everywhere. But the smoke made it all worth it. So, but I do try to do a lot of stuff because I have people that are close to me, friends and stuff that say, hey, when you cross these, will you do that? And so there's some things that I'm choosing and working things through. I made a Mac 1 and a Runs cross with Romulan. And I crossed the Mac 1 and the Runs together first and worked those and made a selection. And then I crossed with my Romulan, and I'm calling it Burning Cap. And that's a strain that I'm probably going to be releasing somewhere within 6 months from now, if not sooner. And I did that project solely because I had pressure from like 3 close friends to work with those 2 cultivars and work it with Romulan. And 2 different people were specifically, one was asking for Mac, one was asking for Runs. So I said, fuck it, I'll make them both happy. And I'll start by crossing those together, and then I'll cross that with Romulan. And I think it turned out pretty good. Yeah, I think it turned out pretty good. But I never would have done that at all if it wasn't for people asking me, and if it wasn't for some of my followers saying, hey, I would love to see a Runs and Romulan. I would love to see this. So there are some things that I do doing now. Yes. So, and that's so it never would have seen the light of day. People wouldn't even know about it if I wasn't.
Yeah. So that's all that matters.
There's a lot of stuff I've scrapped that, for example, I didn't like it when I crossed just Romulan with Mac 1. I thought that might turn out okay because I thought it would look good, and it did.
Okay, so you did try to outcross it to both parents too.
Yeah. Okay. And the plant sucked and the smoke sucked, in my opinion. I would be saying the same thing if those people who could be offended were in the same room. I would be saying it in front of them. So
fucking respect, brother.
And it's a lot easier when it's that way. Because, when someone gets offended, you can explain yourself and be like, I apologize and all that if you can't fix it.
Yeah, but I don't want to make your day harder.
Yeah, no. I know I've been dealing with that long enough now where it doesn't really trouble me as much anymore.
I've
especially
dealt
when
with
it
for
comes
a long
to
time, and I still don't want to fucking deal with it.
the offending people drama thing has gone very well for me lately when it's happened. I had Dojo Seed Stone Ninja.
Mhm.
He put a post up. I didn't know about it. People were like, "Oh my God," coming at me talking all this shit. I'm like, "What the hell is going on?" And they're like, "You can't call this strain Cold Stone," because he had made a strain and named
I
it Cold Stone.
remember that.
We didn't know about it.
I forgot I was still
him and I.
though.
Yeah, and he just put a post up, and he wasn't trying to start shit. He even said that in his post, but his followers blew up on him, and I got all this backlash. And so then I'm like, hey, brother, I sent him a DM, and we just start chatting, and everything was totally cool right off the bat, and he was a great guy. And I'm like, we'll just change the name. It's not a big deal. We haven't, it's months from release. Doesn't even have a date yet. And he's like, cool, no worries. I mean, you can keep the name if you want. I don't really even care. And so he was super chill, and everything worked out fine. We just changed the name, and there was like no drama. But for a couple days on Instagram, it was, you would have thought, someone's grandmother.
So let's end this. How are we going to end this? All right, man. Well, fuck. I want to thank you for coming and joining me on this.
Yeah, thanks for having me, brother.
I know you haven't done very many of these. You don't really like speaking publicly or anything like that, but I hope this really helped you break out of your shell, because you and I have been talking for a while now, especially about doing something like this. And
it definitely helped.
I'm happy as hell that you finally came out and that you were able to, talk about this, because your story is special, and it's something that needs to be out there, especially just you as a person. I respect you as a fucking person. And I don't say that about very many people.
I appreciate that, truly. I really do.
So,
and thank you for having me on. It's I know you and I kind of talked about maybe doing something else. As long as it's not immediately, I'm definitely down to do this again soon. I just need to, like I said, I need to catch up on my sleep.
What an amazing episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. Jake is always a great person to talk to. Him and I always click, and it's a never-ending source of entertainment talking to him. And we look forward to having him on the show again soon. Before we get going, I wanted to give a quick shout out to our Patreon. That's right, we have a Patreon. It's only $10 a month. It gives you all access pass to our Discord, and it gives you write-ups as far as learning how to grow with KNF. I am merely your guide in cannabis. I'm not going to teach you how to grow cannabis. That's something that people need to realize. You are the one that's going to teach you how to grow cannabis. I am simply there as a helping hand to help guide you in whatever style of growing you decide is best for yourself. We do have write-ups consistently on how to use KNF, how to slowly incorporate it into your grow if you're interested in transitioning into those methods. All kinds of great stuff. I also want to give a shout out to all my guys that are over there following me already on the brand new Discord. Charlie Brown, Covert Dylan, Farmer Fly, Funtime Grower, Grow Green Daddy, Harshy83, Husky Gardens, J-Train, Country Green Thumb, Farmer John, and Twisted Gardens. These guys are all joining me on the brand new Discord. They're learning all kinds of stuff. If you're wondering if it's worth it, go give them a follow on IG. Ask them what they think of it. It is a great community, and we've been having tons of fun over there. We have all kinds of threads, anywhere from a general chat, soil building, genetics, making different teas. We have a suggestion box so you can tell us what you want to see. Of course, we've got the show-off threads, joints, dab art, all kinds of good stuff. We even have home gardening threads, a place to promote yourself, to talk about growing, to talk about harvesting, plant training, IPM, making your own concentrates. We even have our own connections thread to help connect people that are in our Discord server with people that are close to them. And I think it's an amazing tool, and I would love to see more of you in there. You also have access to all kinds of seeds. We invite our breeders or our interviewees on to our Discord server for a video chat after the show typically. And these guys have been winning awesome seeds. They've been winning seeds from Swami, from Canna Queen, all kinds of good stuff. And I hope to see you in there. So if you did enjoy the show, send us a like, send us a share, shout out the show, share it with a friend that you think might enjoy it as well. And until next time, I love you all. I appreciate y'all. This has been Doc Calix with Romulan Genetics, wishing you a very good night. Stay growing, people.